So first off, I wanted to say that it's an amazing honor to be up here sharing the stage with all these amazing young people and in front of all these amazing young people. So I'm feeling a little old, and I'm going to refrain from using my old man voice and saying things like, when I was your age. But the tools that I used to learn and collaborate and communicate with my friends are probably unfamiliar with many of the younger folks in the audience today. When I was young and I wanted to talk to one of my friends, I'd go to the kitchen where we had an avocado-colored rotary dial telephone, and I would dial the 7 digits. The older folks in the audience know what gesture I'm referring to here. And it was kind of restrictive because it had a very short spiral cord that led from the receiver to the base of the telephone. One day our home experienced a transformational breakthrough. We got a longer spiral cord. It allowed us to sit down and have longer, more in-depth conversations with folks. When I needed to learn something, what did I do? I went to the library, because that's where the books were. I used this thing called a card catalog. I'd look through the list of books, the cards. I'd use the Dewey Decimal System to identify the book on the stack that I needed to look up. And I would reiterate through that process until I had completed my research. Or sometimes I might just punt and look in the encyclopedia. So how did I collaborate in other ways? In 1980, I got access to my first computer. It was an Apple II computer. And much like Nathan, I had a passion for it. I just buried myself in that thing. It had a 5¼ floppy disk, had no hard drive, and wasn't connected to any other computer. But still, I had the same passion as Nathan and his 3D printer. Later on at CSU in the late 80s, I had access to the internet, but I had to go to the computer science laboratory to access the internet. It was email, file transfer, and the occasional text-based game. At the time, I didn't think it was very remarkable. Then in 1993 at CU, a friend of mine gave me a 3½ floppy disk with this program called Mosaic, one of the first internet browsers. I took that home, put it in my PC, used my modem to dial up my internet service provider, and I accessed the World Wide Web. And dag-nabbit, I was thankful. Fast forward to today, where we're in a heavily connected internet world, right? Sometimes people might say we're even too connected. We have connectivity just about everywhere we go. And we've invested in our information technology that's led to increased productivity and increased and more interesting innovations. But what if we were in a world where nobody contributed to this online world? What if people just wanted to simply consume information from the internet rather than participate in it? But wouldn't the world be great if we had more people who shared what they knew with the world at large, and we had access to it? Now, when I mean sharing, I don't mean sending a tweet about what you had for lunch, or sending a link to an internet meme, or pictures of cute cats or grumpy cats, or sending a link to a YouTube video of a popular song like, "What does the fox say?" I can't get that out of my head some days. You know what I mean. But what I'm referring to is serious contributions, where people are sharing what they know with other people, and that's going to create this global online learning environment. To the point where, if we shared more of what we knew and leveraged that information, that would help us as well as humankind. When I think of that word humankind, I also think of another word, Ubuntu. Ubuntu is an African language word which means human-ness, or humanity and humanity to others. It's a difficult word because it's a difficult concept to translate into English, but it kind of means this belief that there's this unbounded bind of how we share with each other that connects us. It's this concept that I am what I am because of all of what we are. It's this concept that our ancestors and what they were and their experiences makes us who we are, and our interactions with each other further our experience and allow us to develop. And no more so is this true, or this is no more true than any place else other than on the internet, where we share what we know, with the broader community. And so, in this way, we share information and we become connected. There was a television show with the name Connections. In the late 70s, early 80s, it was produced by the BBC, and it was created and narrated by James Burke, this science historian. And his show wove stories about how, one discovery, either advertent or inadvertent, led to another innovation, which led to some other scientist or someone else to come up with some other scientific advancement. And eventually it led to some piece of modern technology that we largely take for granted. But his show showed that through time, these different scientific discoveries were made, and it was very difficult for early scientists to collaborate and share information with each other. It's my view that a lot of innovations aren't just one person's bright idea and they see it through implementation. Rather, it's a collaborative result. It's one person's idea building upon another person's innovation. And the past generations of scientists and people are standing on the shoulders of the giants of the previous generations. I think that's true in technology for sure. And so imagine back to the 1600s when Galileo Galilei was, collaborating or communicating with Johannes Kepler, whether they were talking about, sunspots or what makes the tides or whether orbits are circular or elliptical. It was difficult. When they shared, papers that were written on parchment, they had to send those via horseback or carriage. It took a long time, took months before they even had just one turn of interaction. Even Albert Einstein, when he would collaborate with his peers and his contemporaries like Niels Bohr on some nuclear science-related topic, they would send papers and documents either over automobile or boat. And only when they were together did they make probably more productivity. And so the television show Connections also showed that as time went on, as years passed, the speed of innovation accelerated. And so what would have happened had those amazing scientists lived in the modern time? Well, I would say we have people like that, those amazing scientists living in this time, and we're going to see where that goes. So the size of the network matters too. If we had plugged those scientists into the current large, heavily connected environment, they would have had some great success. The size of the network is what I mean by the size of the network. It's the number of nodes, the number of computers, the number of users, the amount of data and transactions and utility of that makes it valuable. This reminds me of two laws, Metcalfe's law and Beckstrom's law. Metcalfe's law was created by Bob Metcalfe, the inventor of Ethernet networks. And I bet many of you have an Ethernet network in your house today. His law states that the value of a network is proportional to square the number of users. And so if a network had 2 people, they could form a single connection. 2 squared is 4. 10 people could have 45 different possible connection options. 10 squared is 100. 100 users would have a value of 10,000. And today on the current internet with 2.7 or 2.8 billion users, the value of the internet is 7.6 times 10 to the 18th. Or 7.6 quintillion, a big number. Rod Beckstrom had a law that kind of did a subtle tweak on Metcalfe's law, which says that the value of a network is the net value of each user's transactions over that network summed over the number of users. It's a better model for approximating the value of a social network or internet collaboration. And so essentially, a big network with very little traffic may be less valuable than a smaller network with lots of activity. And that, Facebook would be pretty boring if it just had one user, even if it was the most interesting man in the universe. And Twitter would be essentially useless without both tweets and followers. And so, as we engage in this internet, we leverage rich media, high quality, high bandwidth information now. We have access to a lot of data and resources. Students use a variety of resources to share with their peers and perform their homework. They leverage Google Docs and Skype and cloud-based apps and to complete their homework. This begs the question, can any of us learn anything if we're not connected to the internet? Well, we know what happens when large communities are disconnected from the internet. We've seen that in recent years. Libya, Egypt, Syria. During times of political criticality, their governments have mandated that they've disconnect the entire country from the internet. This has had tremendous negative impact on their citizens, their businesses, and the world at large. And in this internet-connected world, we're immediately notified of world events that happen globally. This global communication is evident in the coordination of the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2014 Olympic Games. That was an amazing spectacle, to coordinate all those folks across multiple continents, to coordinate the schedules of 2,873 athletes from 88 nations. It was just remarkable. What other things have come about as a result of the internet? I think creation of the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland. You know, all those scientists coming together to make that discovery and discover the Higgs boson. Collaboration of scientists on stem cell research, which now gives us the ability to grow human tissue. Work on brain science and neural sensors, either in the brain sensors like BrainGate or outside the head's neural sensors. Or if it's sequencing the human genome or working on DNA or RNA research, and eventually could lead to the cures for some kinds of cancers. This is all amazing stuff, and you know, and it's going to be amazing what we can do with this. So if you're a fan of alternate history, I give you one question: what if the internet hadn't been invented? What would our lives be like then? Or be like today? So as we engage in the internet and we collaborate with others, we realize that we can have a really positive contribution to the world at large. And people can have an amplification effect on others as they share what they know with the community, with the broadest internet community. We're creating our global culture here when we share and when we experience things together. Like when we watched the Felix Baumgartner Red Bull Stratos space jump. You know, we all watched that and we were amazed by that happening, and we all watched it together, and we saw that happen. That was fantastic. And so this amplification effect on other people can take place. What if, you know, someone, maybe one of our young people, had created a video on some time-saving technique? Maybe this video that got posted to the internet saves the viewer, had they employed the technique, maybe 1 minute a month. You know, it's a small time-saving technique. If only 50,000 people watched that video and employed that technique, you've just saved 1 human year. That's a pretty good return on investment for a little 10-minute video on some task. And so our young people are going to have even greater productivity, increased number of innovations, and more amazing discoveries than any previous generation in history. The young people in this generation have proven they can use these tools and collaborate effectively using social networks. And as these young people continue to grow and share what they know on the internet, watch out. We're going to be amazed. So we can't wait to see what you do when you leverage the power of the internet. Thank you.